Have you ever rolled your eyes at the idea of manifestation, thinking that it means all you have to do is ask for what you want, then it will happen? Spoiler alert, you still have to do the things. But the good news is you can make your dreams come true if you put in the work, both from a mental and energetic perspective, as well as taking the right actions towards your goals. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Success Summit interview series. I'm your host, Kelly Sinclair, aka the Fairy Brand Mother, working with passionate entrepreneurs to get you visibility for your brand, your business, and your purpose. And I am super excited to introduce you to my guest, transformational life coach, best-selling author, international speaker, podcaster of the My Dead Dragon podcast, and founder of Katalyst Coaching, Katherine Loranger. She asserts to the bold that life is theirs for the taking. And I am so pumped about this conversation, especially as we are wrapping up a year, thinking about goals, thinking about next year, and dreaming really big. Welcome, Katherine.
Kelly, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Oh my God, I'm like so pumped for this conversation.
Yeah, the energy is like way up here,
Oh,
guys. We had like
all
a
the
really
energy.
great pre-interview conversation too. So we're like flying high. So we get ready for some fire. Oh, I want to talk to you about this one important piece of what you do in your business as a coach around like helping people to see that their potential is already present.
Yeah, I love that. And so often mm, so we have been as human beings. So if this resonates with you and you're thinking, "Oh my God, it's just me." It's not you. It's us as humans. We have been conditioned to show up in our life in a certain way, right? And we've been trained and programmed to look to our current circumstances, to look to our bank account, to look to our education, maybe the year that we had, what we look like, our marital status, our age, like whatever. We look to those things outside of us to determine what we think is possible for us. And it is 100% a game changer when you actually learn to look to yourself to determine what's possible for you. So we're not denying at the level of fact, we're not denying that my bank account has X, we're not denying that we're in a global pandemic. However, what we're doing is we're learning to deny those things to control how we show up and how we dream for our lives.
Mm, yeah, so deep. So, how do people shift that?
Hmm. The first step is really noticing what you're noticing. And this is kind of the first tool I teach my clients is to start to just notice, to get curious about like, oh, okay, I'm noticing that I'm really just focusing on the news all the time. Or I'm noticing that I've got this story running in my head or this belief about what I can or can't do. I'm noticing when I'm feeling like really stressed and anxious and freaked out, when I'm worried, when I'm, angry or frustrated, overwhelmed, or I'm noticing when I feel like really excited and abundant and full of life and vitality. So the first step is really noticing
Mm,
because those patterns are running anyway, right? We all have, and there's this kind of, you can think of it like an iceberg. The part that you see on the top above the water is our conscious mind, and that's the stuff that we're consciously aware of. And all of the stuff under the water is our subconscious mind. And so our subconscious mind is actually kind of like automatically running things for us. Because like, thank God, there's like way too much stuff to pay attention to and have to manage. So we've got all of these kind of habits and patterns that allow us to function in our life and really evolve from kind of a survival perspective, right? We our technological revolution is really quite new in the history of our species. So, physiologically, evolutionary, we had a very long time where there was literal life and death situations every day. And so, our subconscious brain really evolved to keep us alive, to protect us, to keep us safe. And the way that it does that, one of the ways that it does that is to look for things that are dangerous or things that it thinks are dangerous, such as being different, right? And now being different is actually like, oh, it's kind of celebrated a little bit more, right? But at a certain point in time, being different actually meant you could literally die, like if you didn't have the support of your tribe or community. So that subconscious mind is really at work looking for the danger, right? Looking for, oh, well, the bank account's only this and it's a global pandemic. And from that attention, we then have thoughts, and then those thoughts generate a physiological response. And then based on that physiology, we take an action, and then that action is really what determines the result. So really the first step in leaning into possibility thinking is to start to notice what you're currently operating with.
Mm.
Does that make sense? That's a lot. I just like fire hose with
You're
content.
like, here's the history of human evolution. And I'm going, okay, let's apply this to how it restricts us when we set goals and when we're
Yeah.
dreaming.
Yeah. Well, and so often what we do is we dream based on what we think is possible. We
Mm-hmm.
dream based on maybe what we've accomplished in the past. We dream based on these external conditions and our subconscious mind trying to keep us safe,
Yeah.
right? So if we've only ever made, $20,000 a year, and all of a sudden we say, well, I'm going to dream I'm going to make $1 million a year, that's not right. Like and at the level of fact, that might be a little bit much of a stretch. It's going to trigger a
Right.
fight and flight response. But when we dream outside of what we've known as our reality so far, our patterns try to pull us back, and they try to diminish us, and they try to say, well, you can't really dream that big because you don't have the education, or you can't dream that big because you don't have the experience, or because you don't have the resources, or you don't have the supports to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
So to really start to dream, to really tap into possibility thinking, is to work with powerful questions, right? And think about this. So just for people listening, notice when I ask the question, how am I going to pay my bills this month?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? What
Right.
thoughts are you thinking, right? You're probably kind of like feeling a little bit anxious, even if you're fine, right? Even if you're
Yeah.
fully financially abundant, just that very thought kind of invokes a sense of panic in you. And you start thinking about like, oh, I could collect bottles, or I could, like go sell some stuff on Kijiji, and
Right.
you start to think those things. But what if we asked a different question? So what if the question was, how can I generate an extra $10,000 this month?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we're creative.
Totally creative. And our brain, what we've done is we've actually directed our subconscious brain to start to think of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's then starts with the noticing what kind of questions are you asking yourself? What are you focusing on? What are you paying attention to? And then how do you ask a bigger question of yourself? And the question that I work with my clients is, what would you love? What would
Yeah.
you love, right? And so often when I share that question with people, their brain, you can see their brain is kind of like, what, like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
Because we've never been given permission to ask that question.
I feel like so much of it is us worried about what happens if we have to tell somebody else that that's our dream or that's
Yeah.
our goal. Like I even wrote a big scary dream down on a piece of paper and hesitated just writing it on the paper, which was just for me. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what if I write that? Oh, that seems really hard. Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. And then,
Yeah.
just the practice of like, it's something I write down every single day. So it
Mm.
starts to feel more natural now, but
Yeah.
we filter that, right? Like, oh, so I'm going to share now because one of my big dreams
Yeah, you
for this
are.
coming year is to take my whole family to Hawaii and
Ooh,
pay for it.
love it. Love
Which
it.
is like, I'm like on Airbnb going, okay, this is gonna be,
Yeah.
but I want like a villa, like a beautiful, like ocean view with a pool and like fancy. That's what I want.
Yeah. So
So,
oh my God, Kelly, there's so much there, right? So which is such a perfect example of how it works. So what would I love? I would love to do this, right? And in this example, take my whole family to this stunning villa in Hawaii. And so what happens when we ask that question, what would I love? We actually start to tap into bigger dreaming for ourselves.
mm,
And we start to feel like, oh, I would love that. And then, like, pretty much right away, our fear jumps in. How are you going to do that? What are people going to think? Is that really realistic? Can you afford it? Right? That's where all of the limiting thoughts start to show up to like pull us back down. So
Yeah.
as we're noticing those, we're like, oh, you sneaky limiting thought, right?
Mm,
So sneaky. So then we stay in the question, what would I love? We stay connected to it. What would I love? What would I love? That's the vision. We stay connected to the vision. And then we start to write it down, right? And we start to get more detail. We're pouring energy into it. Well, it's not like a crappy little condo. No, it's a villa, right?
hmm
We're not in like a slum. We're on the beach, right? You're getting clear. And then you're starting to take action. You're looking at Airbnbs, you're checking out flights. So there's actually a whole process that you go through to really bring what it is that you would love into reality. But it
Yes.
starts with that possibility thinking.
Yes, I love this. Okay. So talk a little bit about how you work with people to help them take the right action and get rid of those negative
Yeah.
thoughts and actually
Yeah.
like hit their goals.
Yeah. So goals are so important to set. They're so important, right? Because there's this great quote by Seneca. This is kind of the philosopher. This is kind of the abbreviated thing is that no wind is favorable to a ship with no destination.
Right.
No wind is favorable to a ship with no destination. So if you don't know where you're headed, you can have the perfect conditions in your life. Meh.
Mm,
Meh. How do you
mm,
take advantage of those? How do you even notice that they're there? How do you even
right.
like see that that's an opportunity for you? So the first step is knowing where you're going, right? That's the vision. That's the goals that you're setting for yourself. So starting with the end in sight and knowing that as you move towards it, it's okay for it to evolve. It's actually going to evolve. That's part of the process, right? You create this vision, you set those goals, you start to really get curious and interested in those. You start to really associate with those. One of the ways that you do that is that you put it on. So you imagine that it's a done deal. So for you, with the example of writing out going to Hawaii, taking your whole family to Hawaii, you're writing it out, writing it out, writing it out. You're actually activating the tool of auto suggestion. You're starting to reprogram your subconscious mind. This is what we're doing. 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 And then it gets to a point where it's like, oh, we're doing this thing. Okay, well then and then you start to see yourself as the person who's doing this
Mm,
thing. And then
mhm,
when you see that, you take different action
right.
because you have to take action. Here's the thing, and we were talking about this in the pre-show, is that manifestation, right? That's where you have this like this vision of what you would love, you're really connected to it. But if you just sit your butt on the couch and do nothing, how is it going to get to you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to take the action because the action that you want to take, you're connected to the energy of that vision. So you're starting to associate with it on the same frequency. And you think about a radio station, if you want to listen to classical music and you're tuned to heavy metal thrash, you're
That,
not going to find that on that station. You actually need to change the station, right?
yeah.
If you want to call me on my phone, you're not going to dial 911 and get me. You're going to dial my number to get me. Everything is energy.
Mm,
So part of
mhm,
that is matching the frequency of that energy because the person who is easily booking a luxury villa on the beach for her entire family, she's thinking different thoughts and taking different actions than the woman who is thinking I can't ever afford to go there.
mm, yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I feel like we could unpack this so much into your childhood where like at what point in time do you stop believing like my 6-year-old wants to be a mermaid and she's fully convinced that that's going to happen in her life. There's
Yeah.
nothing telling her, "Oh, well, I don't know if mermaids are really real." Like actually there's a whole like group of people who are like mermaids in Florida. They're in some big like aquatic center. I don't know. I heard that was a real thing. So but we just we think that dreaming actually only means things that we can't have,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, that's a dream. like just put it over on the shelf of things I'll never achieve. But let's talk about making dreams happen and
Mhm.
making them by taking the action, by believing that you could do it, and letting go sometimes of the need to understand every single step
Yeah.
along the way. Right?
Yeah.
The need to release, like for me, I'm an Enneagram 8, I'm a control person. I like to know, I like to be in control, I like to feel in control, I like to think that everything's in control. But sometimes it's like sometimes the things that work the best are the ones where I just let go and do and know and believe that it's happening, and then just it just makes it happen. And I can't
Yeah.
even look back and explain how it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. That's totally when you're in that flow state and when you're actively co-creating with the universe. And that's really kind of the lens that I take and the approach I take with my clients is like, yes, there's like metrics and you got to take steps and tasks, and I come
Yeah.
from, a very like kind of logical brain. I want to like, how do we operationalize this and how do we
Right.
measure it, and what's the science? Show me the data. So that's kind of how my brain has been, functioning in this world. And there's also another way. So you still need to kind of like have that piece, but there's another piece that when you start to work with it consciously and you know how it works, you get those results faster, easier. You start to tap into things that you didn't even know were there, right? Because when we're trying to control things, we're so focused on what we think it's going to look like. Think about it. You've got that narrow vision, and there's all of these other things that are happening around you that you're completely missing. You're completely missing. So when you are stressed, when you're anxious, when you're so, and like you got to be focused to be clear, right? You need to be
Mm-hmm.
focused to achieve your goals. It's like if you have a concrete truck show up to your house, you want to give it some forms, right? Otherwise, you're gonna have like a mess of concrete. So same with us, our energy that we're putting into our business, into our vision, into our dream, we want to focus it. But we also want to have that focus so that we're also aware of and open to other things, other opportunities, right? That can just kind
Yes.
of pop into our lap.
Right, totally. I can exactly see how that's like happening in my life currently as you say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk because you have a special
Mhm.
goal setting vision board workshop coming up. And I know lots of
Yeah.
people love to physically make the thing that shows them, like, I'm going to be cutting out a picture of that villa and putting that right on there, right?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And so I've actually got my so yes, I have a vision board workshop coming up on New Year's Eve this year. I do it every New Year's Eve, and it's live virtual, so it's over Zoom in the comfort of your own home. I'm going to send you, when you register for it, I'm going to send you like directions on how to kind of reflect for the year, how to prepare. We're going to come together, people all over really the world. I've had people from all over the world attend. It's super, super fun. And we're going to really tune into what is that vision for 2022? What would you love to create? And then I'm going to talk about the science a little bit because I love the science. And then we're actually going to do some work together. And so I actually have a vision board for each quadrant of my life because I work in quadrants. So health and well-being, love and relationships, career, vocation, time and money, freedom. So my career and vocation one is like right there, right there. And when I made it last year, two of the things that I put on there, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know how that's going to happen. That's ridiculous. Top 10 podcast and best-selling author. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, those both happened this year. So
Mm-hmm.
starting out, I didn't know how. I didn't know the how, but I had the vision. I took the steps. I was attuned to opportunities and possibilities. And lo and behold, I can close out the year saying I'm a top 10 podcast and an international best-selling author.
Ooh, high five.
Right?
Yes.
Like this
Love it.
stuff is so much fun. It's so much fun. Yeah,
So
so that's
good.
happening on New Year's Eve. And
Perfect.
yeah, yeah.
I will include links and instructions and all that stuff below this, wherever this video is going to appear, in the many places that's going to appear. What is your favorite way for people to connect with you online?
All of the ways. Instagram is good, Facebook, Messenger. You can go to my website if you want to connect and book a strategy session, or if you just want to like follow me and DM me. I'm on all the socials.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I will make sure that you are, all of the ways to connect with Katherine are listed below in this video. So you can reach out to her so you can talk about more of this like realistic manifestation that she can support with. I'm super excited about it all and everything that has come together during the time that you and I have known each other. I have really appreciated our relationship, and always every time I have a conversation with you, it feels like a coaching session anyways, right? Like things are like connecting. So I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here today. I hope that everyone enjoyed this. Reach out to Katherine and make 2022 your best year ever.